All right. Red light is on. What is up, everybody? Aaron the Dog back with breakdown number 1 of 3 for the week. Starting off with the Cage Warriors 134 event, headlined now by Jordan Vucenic. How you say his name? Go ahead and tell.
Vucenic.
I was going back and forth, even though I kept hearing it. And now James Hendin for the featherweight title. Paul Hughes had to pull out with a very late neck injury, which is never something you want to hear of any fighter. Huge bummer there. Just for fun, who are you taking in the original main event?
I would have taken Vucenic, but it would have been it would have been a lot closer than this fight predicted. But we can get into that later.
Yeah, we definitely can get into that later. And right off the bat, if you're not familiar, I do cover LFA on this channel as well. And last week in LFA, we had a late notice change in the main event to a perceived easier opponent for Jonas Bilharino taking on Jose Delano, and ended up maybe being a tougher opponent. I guess we won't know because Barboza, but I'm almost getting flashbacks to that. I get these are two very different fights and fighters, but there's definitely that shade of just like kind of PTSD for me, because when I saw Bilharino set up with Jose Delano, all right, we've got a better matchup for Brazilian Conor McGregor, which he did look like Conor McGregor, just not the prime Conor McGregor we were hoping he would be, more of a struggling one. But we are here. It's a big weekend for London O2 Arena for both events.
Yeah, so this one is in the Indigo, which is basically like a smaller room within it.
Yeah.
I think it holds about 3,500, whereas the actual arena holds 20,000.
Okay, yeah, so still a pretty decent one, and I think there's definitely events that Cage Warriors could put together to get into the bigger arena.
Sold out very quickly, this one.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Madison Square Garden has a similar thing with their like Hulu theater next to the Madison Square Garden. So I think before PFL's done events there, and then they've been like, we're at Madison Square Garden. So it's kind of the same thing here, because they are advertising it as if it's at O2 Arena, at least from our side. But yeah, it's down to 7 fights. It was originally 12. I've had a lot of opponent changes. I think James Hendin's on opponent number 4 now, and he's settled on Jordan Vucenic, who's not an easy fighter at all. So, and I know you'll have a lot to say about that when we get to that fight. We both will, but we are starting the event as it's displayed right now on Tapology, subject to change, of course. At the flyweight,
all over the shop in there.
Yeah, at the flyweight division, we are starting with Lonair Kavanaugh. I believe that's how you say his name. Taking on Ryan Morgan. Nailed that one. But this is at featherweight. Lonair, definitely a very hyped up prospect coming into this fight at 2-0, but very exciting. He's been off for a little bit. Good to see. Yeah, Dylan mentioning the lack of fights, or the fights being canceled. We had Devin in here right away. And then, of course, Bunny, Boston Comments herself, Bunny 2.0 in here. How you doing? DJ Hooligan, always good to see you here, DJ. Appreciate all the support, everybody. Starting at 125. So, yeah, we're down to 7 fights. I'll say the positive. I think all the fights are going to be pretty good, or entertaining finishes. This one's a little bit harder since we don't know a ton about Ryan Morgan. He's only 1-0 out of Wales. I'm kind of curious how, the crowd will react to a lot of these fighters, and you're curious on your kind of input on that. So far, Mr. Morgan, Ryan Mendez, as he goes by, only 1-0 as a pro. It was in 2018 with Budo Championship, and it was against a 1-8 Brad Evans. He went to a decision there. Couldn't find anything of it. As an amateur, went 4-1, had a ground and pound, couple TKO finishes, and a forearm choke of an 0-2 opponent. Again, Budo Fighting Championships. He hasn't faced a great level of competition. Lonair Kavanaugh, I am familiar with. He's also been off for a little while. He is English, so obviously going to have the crowd on his side for this. Still only 22 years old. So, I mean, he was fighting as a teenager last time he fought, or nearly. Great Britain top team, 2019 of December, last time he fought, 5-4. He got a guillotine finish of a 6-10 opponent with Fight Star. Then was supposed to fight in December of this past year against Maximilian Valdo. Not sure what happened there, not sure why or who was out of that. Fought Nick Bagley as an amateur back in 2018, which is nearly the last time that Morgan fought, and he did fight at Bantamweight for that fight. Settled in. He's now settling in at flyweight. He did last fight at flyweight back in 2019, so should be able to make it down there. He's got good finishing ability. Has fought a little better competition, and getting that time in with Bagley even back in 2018 is the most relevant thing I have to go on here. But I mean, Kavanaugh should come in as the big favorite, but he's 2-0, going against a 1-0 guy who hasn't fought in 3 years, though. So I got to go Kavanaugh. I think this is probably one of the more lopsided potential matchups on the card here, but maybe Morgan comes out and looks like a new fighter. So a lot of unknowns with Morgan. Couldn't see any tape. And he's got 1-8 decision 3 years ago. So, I mean, what am I going to do here?
You got screen shares down, by the way.
Yeah. There we go. Definitely just realized that. Good. Right. Yeah, it's my bad. I was going through Morgan's without it there. So, yeah, good luck. What are your thoughts on this one?
No, I think you're spot on. I think there's not enough on Ryan Morgan to kind of make no one can be sure what's going to happen in this fight. He's looked promising. He had a decent amateur career, but Leonard Kavanaugh has a lot of hype behind him. From what you hear in GB Top Team at the moment, everyone is around that weight, flyweight to kind of featherweight limit. There's not many people. I think Mark G. Casey is probably the largest individual there. So, most of the guys around there are like people like Dominic Wooding and Nathaniel Wood. They're all amazing training partners for someone like Kavanaugh to have. And from what I've been hearing about Ashley Grimshaw and Brad Pickett about this guy is he's ridiculous. He uses he's not the biggest for the division. He's not the smallest either. I think he's 5'4", isn't it? But he is super young and he's always in the gym non-stop. Whereas Ryan Morgan, from what I've heard, is just he fell out of love with martial arts for the mixed martial arts side for a year or two, and now he's coming back. So that always worries me a little bit. So all my eggs are in Leonard Kavanaugh's basket. So
yeah, I mean, I was expecting to see a pretty large number, not as big as I was expecting, to be honest. That's what she said. Minus 265 for Kavanaugh, plus 205 for Ryan Morgan right now. I expect that number to go up.
That's still pretty high, isn't it? With people that have 2-0 and 1-0.
Both have been off for multiple years. One's 22 years old, hasn't even fought since maybe he was 20. So, we saw the Dura fighter a few weeks ago making his debut pretty high up on the card. I get that he was very regular as an amateur, but came in with a lot of hype. These hyped up kind of prospects from Cage Warriors, they for the most part seem to nail at least their first few fights to make them look pretty well. So I think it's a pretty favorable matchup. It is still high, but just based on some of the other fights I'm seeing on the card, I think that it's fair. But yeah, we're gonna agree there. Move on. I
will say one thing though, and that's Cage Warriors don't ever spoon feed people opponents. Like, even if you're 1-0 and you've got hype behind you, they'll throw you another 1-0 guy with hype.
I mean, they get, what was Junior Morgan, like 3-0 when Dura, I'm blanking on his last name from McNulty or, but either way, Dura, Irish guy, who was very hyped up. He was going against like a pretty decent guy. Yeah. And that was with Bellator. You're right. So, but yeah, I was getting those crossed up. I'm just breaking down too many fights. Last week I made up relatives, Loic Radabanov and Godzi. Godzi looked amazing, by the way. But Cage Warriors we'll focus on here. The next fight of the night is at Bantamweight. I think this has potential to be fight of the night. I think it's a really good fight, honestly. It says right now it's a prelim fight. I'm not sure why it's the second one on Tapology and why there's only one. But Aiden James taking on Kingsley Crawford. Kingsley Crawford, kind of a favorite of mine to break down. He's just he's fought a lot of guys for so early in his career at 7-3. Part of the reason, I think that he has a 7-3 record, taking on the 5-2 Aiden James here. England versus Wales again. Kingsley Crawford, I'll be breaking down first here. 5'8", 74-inch reach, though, so I do believe he has a reach advantage on the 5'11", Aiden James, but is the shorter opponent. Uses good movement, good on the feet. Another Great Britain top team representative, quite a few of these on the card. 2 straight wins for him. Started to really figure it out in the last couple. Beat an Adam Wilson with a Barbaro choke in the third round in September of this year, and then came back in December to get a decision win over Liam Giddens. Very kind of similar type of opponent to Aiden James in a lot of ways. So I really think that's a huge X factor in this for Kingsley to essentially be working against a similar type of opponent. Liam Giddens was 7-3 coming into that fight, but very pressure-based fighter, good stand-up, will use the ground. Pretty much everything I can say about Aiden James here. The thing I really liked about Aiden in his last fight is that he got injured and didn't use it as an excuse, got taken down and went right for the takedown. Really nice elbows there, would have sunk into submission otherwise. But yeah, I mean, it was looking good before that. It was a pretty good, close, competitive first round, but I think he had kind of handled it once he got his activity going. So that's kind of the key for me with Aiden, is either has the volume working a little more, which I think could get him into trouble against a guy like Kingsley, because I think Kingsley can really counter. He's going to be the quicker and better mover of the two. Or Aiden goes to his wrestling a little sooner than he did in his last fight. I think that he waited a little too long, but it might have been based on the opponent. And Felipe Rouche or whatever his name was, he was okay, but kind of a guy you can figure out how much is my stand-up improved on. And I don't know. This one I think is a really close fight. I'm not discrediting Aiden at all. I'm just a big Kingsley Crawford fan, and I like the mistakes that he's made in Cage Warriors. They've been against, because at the end of the day, they've been against Aiden Steven, James Hendin, and Ben Ellis. And we'll find out more about Ben Ellis this weekend. We'll talk about him in a minute. I think Ben Ellis is quite good, though, actually. I don't think he's Welsh Khabib, but, it's okay. There's been 3 or 4 Welsh guys who've claimed to be Khabib now. That's just kind of what they do. But with Aiden, I think Aiden is very well-rounded. I do think on the feet it can be competitive. I don't think it's like a blowout for Kingsley. I do think if Aiden is shooting and getting a takedown in the first round, I'm very nervous, because I think once he gets success with the takedown, I think he could have a lot of success. I'd be interested to see Kingsley's get-up game and ability to avoid the ground here. I'm going to go with Kingsley. I just think he's going to use his movement, his speed, his athleticism, and again, level of competition that he's faced throughout his career has been really impressive. There's a reason why I watch every Kingsley fight, whether it's because I'm researching him or one of his opponents at some point. And he's never looked awful to me in there. He really hasn't. And, maybe you will say otherwise, but, I just think that the lack of activity, I think, for Aiden is going to kind of bite him here. But, if he's aggressive, I do think that he earns that favorite. But I'm going to take the slight underdog in Kingsley Crawford at plus 125.
Yeah, from I know a lot of people that train with Kingsley as well, and they all say the same thing. He's hard to hold down. He's got a piston of a right hand. He, as you said it as well, moves well. He moves very well. 24 years old. He's super athletic. The only issue I do have is the wrestling of Aiden James. He's been able to do it to pretty much everyone. Mm-hmm. Whether he gets going early is the key. I think he's not going to want to stand and trade with Crawford. Crawford doesn't really ever get exposed either. He just kind of grinds out. All his losses are just kind of durational losses, essentially, where he just couldn't get his own game going quick enough, and that's it. I think he's not the next gen or anything, but he's a very good opponent. I think this is a really good matchup anyway. But the Hamza Kuheji fight, over in Brave for Aiden James really impressed me because that guy is slick. He is very good. And that was an arguable decision there. You know, you could have scored if Aiden James. I didn't,
Mhm.
but those sort of opponents make me think, okay, well, he's not out of his depth in competition. You know, Kingsley has faced better competition overall in his career, but that kind of level of competition is still very high. So he's not out of his depth at all. But I will never ever bet against Kingsley. So I just love the bloke too much. He's a super nice man as well. So I think it's going to be a decision, but I think he can. If he'll keep it on the feet, I do think he'll get taken down. But I think he's very hard to hold down. He's got very long limbs. He's got Mr. Tickle arms. You know, he's got such a ridiculous reach, and he uses it as well. He pops that jab out, and he hides the right cross very well. So yeah, I've got Kingsley by decision at this.
Yeah, I again, I was because I didn't have odds till this morning, and I typically don't look at odds when I'm doing fight tape. I think it's tipped my opinion too much ahead of time, and I kind of suggest other people do that. But either way, I mean, everybody has their own process. Some people, but I didn't have odds after I did the tape, I assumed Kingsley was going to be the slight favorite just for being the fan favorite. But I felt that James should be the favorite in all honesty, just because of ability to control where the fight. I do think James can win the fight similar to how his opponents have. I do think grinding it out is the route to go against Kingsley here. But again, I think that, Kingsley's learned from these losses, these last two fights. The Liam Giddens fight, Liam was trying to get him down quite a bit, pressuring him against it. And
Liam is good. Liam Giddens.
And Liam's really, Liam came in with a ton of momentum to that fight too. I'm pretty sure Liam was the favorite in that fight, if I'm not mistaken.
Favorite. Yeah.
So yeah, and Kingsley again, I really do like him too. And plus 125, it's always nice to get a dog you can root for. So we both agree on Kingsley here. I do think this is going to be a close fight. Maybe not fight of the night, just because of how close it could be, but it could. Hopefully,
he's a local boy as well. He's going to have the crowd with him.
Yep, and how are judges with local fighters? Are they typically kind of
persuaded? They're persuaded. It's
okay.
When you
I was curious.
Most of the fighters on here are coming out of Great British Top Team, which is literally down the road from the Indigo, down the road from the O2.
Yeah, and definitely Kingsley always a fan favorite. Next fight here, very very close fight. This fight is so close, and again one that. I think a lot of people are going to go with the Britain Top Team guy, Nick Bagley. Ben Ellis, I think that Ben Ellis is just one of these guys that even though he's had some good results so far in Cage Warriors, he's 2-1 overall in his very early career here. But I just feel like people kind of look at Ben Ellis, or he's 3-1 now, 2-1 in Cage Warriors. People kind of look at Ben Ellis and they're just like, this guy's not that good. He doesn't look that impressive. Looks a little bit small for 145. He's tough. He keeps going. He keeps at it. But if he gets against somebody who's just too much kind of athletically or technically for him, that's kind of where he has issues. And I think we're gonna find out in this fight because these guys mirror each other in a lot of ways. Nick Bagley, I really like English and Wales once again. Seems to be a routine, but Nick Bagley so far has looked really good, both amateur and as a pro. 2-0 as a pro here. Really composed fighter. Great Britain Top Team, once again, 25 years old. Just beginning his prime for the most part here. Good wrestler, very good just grappler. Overwhelmed Scott Peterson, who we both picked in the last fight. Kind of realized that maybe Scott Peterson not as good as we maybe had originally thought, but Bagley just really composed, good takedowns, like slams, but not slams where he's just like using all effort. They're like very good technical slams. He's just to make it this kind of simple, he's just in a lot of ways, a more exciting, more sharp, better version of Ben Ellis, I believe. Just like they really do mirror each other in a lot of ways. I think Bagley is significantly better on the feet. I think when Ben Ellis gets his back against the cage, he gets lost and starts to really be open to get teed up on. And if Bagley wants to take him down, to me, like I just think Nick Bagley is the better version of this fighter between these two fighters. They're simple as that. I've been really impressed with the mental fortitude of Bagley. He doesn't seem to get rattled at such a young age and so young in his career. And again, might have to do with the level of competition. Luke O'Neill 1-2, and then 1-1 Peterson. You got a flying knee in a exhibition bout with Celtic Gladiator. Was supposed to face Luke O'Neill again last month with Supreme. I don't really know what's going on with that. Sometimes fighters kind of split between two. But either way, I think it's going to be a grapple fest a lot. I think Bagley is slightly better on the feet when it is on the feet. Most likely goes to a decision one way or the other. And it's kind of about which guy can get that game going. But I think it's going to be a grind. And I just think Bagley is a little better.
There's not much for me to add to that, to be honest with you. It is a mirror match to me.
Yeah.
And it's who do you prefer? What style do you prefer? One is more wrestling heavy, whereas one's more trip based. And I agree. I think Nick is also better standing, which is the only advantage you can kind of give. And he's English over a Welshman, so I'm picking Nick anyway.
Yeah.
I have a deep love for Great British Top Team, and if people don't know who did follow GB Top Team before, they were called Titan before.
Okay.
So just if you ever see Titan come up at all, that's GB Top Team. But
sorry, DJ, just
Alex Caceres. Alex Caceres shaved his off at one point.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I love Alex Caceres, and honestly, they kind of fight similarly. If I'm being honest, I honestly think that's a toss up. But I'm going to go with Alex Caceres.
Coin flip in it, yeah.
Yeah, just for now. But Kingsley has time, and his name's Kingsley, so come on. The odds with Bagley, he's only a slight favorite, -175. Again, these guys are 2-0 and 3-1 early in their careers. Ben Alice coming off of the loss. We'll see how he responds from that. But before that, looked really good, really aggressive, and refers to himself as Welsh Khabib. So take that to be what you want. But Ben Ellis is +145 right now, -175 on Bagley. I like that price.
I have a horrible feeling about Ben Ellis. His ascension is gonna be like this, like under the radar. Everyone keeps doubting him, and he keeps winning.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be talking about one of those guys tomorrow who's facing Paddy Pimblett and Kazula Vargas. Is Vargas just going to be an underdog his whole career and be presumed to be fed to the Wolves and just keep fucking up the Wolves? We'll see. But we'll talk about that one tomorrow. But technically, Vargas is 1-1. But I think he's 2-1 because he beat Brock Weaver. But we'll move on before I get myself in more trouble.
You should not be competitive with Brock Weaver.
I mean, it really wasn't. He fucked up Brock Weaver and then accidentally kneed him on the ground. And so Brock Weaver took his way out and got his 1 W in the UFC. But icons of Brock Weaver, we'll break him down later. Next fight here, late made fight here between two guys who've had quite a few of their opponents pull out. Tobias Gorilla, originally supposed to fight at featherweight. Now this fight is at 155, taking on Decky McLean. It's so hard to say. They're just so. It's not McLaren. Yeah, it's like McLean. Decky is what I'll call him from here on out. I said his name like 700 times to myself before this, and then I get on here and I get a mouthful of marbles. But Decky 7-4-1. He's a Cage Warriors mainstay here. I get it. 7-4-1, not the best record, but it's an indication that he's fighting good competition. Also, not always. Some guys have bad records and don't fight great competition, but Decky. He's fought pretty good competition for the most part. At times has trained with Team Alpha Male in the past. I don't believe he is for this camp. I believe he's training back in Ireland, but not 100%. He's coming off a draw and a loss in his last couple. Steve McIntosh got the rear naked choke back in June. Just kind of a fight for Decky where at times he just looks a little bit lost and hesitant in there. He didn't look like he wanted to be in there. It was kind of concerning. Definitely, coming back against a dangerous opponent, Tobias Gorilla, even if Tobias is coming up a weight class, I'm a little bit concerned with. He had a fight with a 20-27 Antas Jazabudis back at Cage Warriors.
He gets passed around a lot as like a feeder guy. He's the only one.
Yeah. And I mean, Decky was supposed to go in there and finish him, and he just kind of had a ho-hum decision. It really wasn't all that inspiring. The win against Adam Ventura was a very good win. He looked much sharper in there. One of the things I really do like about Decky is how he uses his length in grappling. I think he uses it really effectively. When he's on the bottom, he can kind of use it to push his opponent away, get into some unique positions. I think it's how he locks in a lot of his submissions is, kind of surprising people with his length. Losses to Tom Means, a close competitive fight. Tom Means, not the best record, but he fights everybody close. He's a grinder. We saw in his last fight, he was able to get a huge upset also by, getting that game plan. So that was a split decision there. Steve Amiable, that was a competitive fight. I thought it was a draw. To be honest with you. I thought Decky won the first round. There was a point taken away in the second, but Steve got it. So a little bit sketchy there. But yeah, I mean, in Cage Warriors so far, I think other than the Adam Ventura fight, we haven't seen the best version of Decky really. And, that is kind of my concern is he seems to show up a little bit flat. He doesn't use his length on the feet, which is definitely where Gorilla is going to be the most a threat. For the most part with Decky, when you put the pressure on with stand up and with where the fight takes place, Decky seems to back up. He seems to relent. The thing I'm a little bit worried about here with Tobias is he's coming up from 145 for this fight. He's a very big 145er. I do think he can fight at 155, but he's going to be significantly shorter. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think it's a 6 to 8 inch reach disadvantage for him in this fight with Decky. And I think the spot where the reach could really affect him is actually on the ground. I don't think Tobias takes him down though. And I'm not sure how Decky gets it to the ground. Decky also has very good leg kicks. Will throw some question mark kicks and some other kicks, but I think Tobias is going to have a significant striking advantage here. So it's just for me, if Decky gets this to the ground, I think he could make this a very hard night for Tobias and possibly submit him, or control him. So it's just, I'm not sure how Decky gets it down there. I see the price on Tobias. I'm not crazy about that after he's been preparing for a featherweight bout. But I mean, it's one where I'm going to take Tobias. I'm going to take him to get the decision, but definitely when I was tempted to consider Decky on, I think Decky could definitely spring an upset here. A lot of experience against really high level of competition. Tobias, on the other hand, not as impressed by the level of competition. His last fight against William Gomez, really a guy who I just wasn't that impressed with going into the fight, definitely. And even in the fight, I was just more not impressed by Tobias, but kind of a high IQ fighter, I think could give Tobias a lot of issues also. It seems when Tobias thinks a lot, he starts to freeze. So that's my other concern here. And I think Decky is definitely a methodical, high IQ type of fighter. So I do think there's a lot of routes here for Decky to steal one here. I am going to edge with Tobias, but dog or pass for me from a betting perspective. Tobias is a minus 350 favorite, and I'm quite shocked by that.
I'm shocked by that, especially for the weight disadvantage.
Yeah.
Reach disadvantage is big time. His striking is better. He's obviously going to be faster, but that's all if he can get inside of that guard.
And Tobias has had two different opponents also.
James Hendin he was originally preparing for. Then he switched to get someone else, and Jeremy Petley. Jeremy Petley is a big featherweight as well. I was under him for a year or so. That's at London Fight Factory in Old Street in London.
And now he's going up a weight class and taking a fight on short notice against a veteran.
Yeah, Decky's actually quite similar to how Petley fights, to be honest. Real hard chopping low kicks. He's better than his record suggests. So I disagree with a few of the decisions. He's fought very good competition other than one or two. I actually like Decky in this fight.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Tobias is a minus 300. He's not some superstar striker. He's a very clinical striker, but if he can't get past that reach, I'm just worried. The only thing I'm worried about for Decky is his gas tank, which has switched off a few times, and Tobias weighing in natural, not cutting the extra 10 pounds. I have no doubt he can go 3 rounds hard.
Yeah, so, push the pace.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that's maybe I'm sitting on the fence at the moment for it, but I out of just curiosity, I think I'm going to pick Decky.
I mean, plus 275 underdog. I don't think he is either.
Yeah, I disagree with that, but again, I completely agree with you. I would pass on this one because it's just completely unknown. This to me is just I have no idea what kind of Tobias we're going to see. Decky is a coin flip whenever he fights.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't think Tobias has fought at 155 before either.
No, he hasn't.
So it's just like there's a lot of X factors here. The other thing with Decky is it's just like which Decky shows up. If it's the Decky from the last couple fights, I mean, he really looked like unplugged in there the last fight, and he even admitted it in the interview. So did he fix those issues, or is this kind of a longer type of issue? But I'll go with Tobias. You got Decky. I totally get it. I think the number will not get higher than plus 275. So if you are edging Decky, I think now's the time to bet him. But then boys, audio. Let's see. Decky is made out of steel, and I believe he's trying to say cocaine there, but maybe coin. I don't want to make any assumptions here, but coin or Wayne, But either way,
can I call the next fight as Clinic of the Night? This will be the most impressive victory of the night.
Okay, so you're not going with the Will Curry sweepstakes. You're going to take the George Hardwick. Okay, I think Will Curry is going to put on the Clinic of the Night. So we might be in for 2 clinics in a row here.
I'd love that. I'd love us both to be right.
I think Will Curry is never going to look better than in this next fight. He's the guy with I can't believe they must love. They must be like. I'll talk about it in a minute. George Hardwick taking on Lucas Capera. I believe is how I'm going to say his name. The Polish fighter taking on Millsburg, England's product, George Hardwick, brother of, is it Harry Hardwick? Yeah, that's what I thought. I kind of thought these guys were one person. They look so similar and they fight so similar. But Lucas Copera, 33 years old here. I'll talk about him a little bit. I'll let you kind of spill on George. You're much more of a fan and familiar, so I'm happy to step aside. 2 straight losses for Lucas coming into this, 33 years old. Last fought in November of 2021, fighting out Zenith Vera Fight Club. 2 straight losses to decent opponent in Hudson Batista with ACA, and that was in April. Lost by doctor stoppage and then a decision against Adlan Batiev, a 13-4 opponent. Don't know a lot of these opponents that he's lost to. He has faced a lot of guys with positive records, and other than one of them, they've all gone to decision, the other 5. So he's mostly a finisher himself, mostly with punches, but does have a few submission wins as well. Hard to find some tape on him, to be honest, but, he's well-rounded for the most part, hasn't tested himself too much as of yet, and I do believe he's kind of being brought in here to be kind of given to Mr. Hardwick, George, this time. George Hardwick, very, very good fighter, 8-1. And tell me a little bit about your thoughts on. I think that George Hardwick just overwhelms him in this fight and gets a finish. But what are your thoughts on George in this fight?
Exactly that. Anywhere he wants to. George Hardwick to me is the epitome of the highest level you can be without being a champion in the lower divisions. Essentially, I think George Hardwick would do a job in the UFC right now. This fight to me is just setting up for a title fight for him. It's just giving him the opportunity to get one more name on his record, shove him in for a title. George Hardwick is the future of this, man. When you've had 7 fights and then you fight someone like Dean Truman, not just because he's a full reptile guy, but Dean Truman is a legit scrapper. He has so many tools to his belt. He's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu player. He's got great grappling. Cardio is the only issue with Dean, and he sorted it out when he won the belt, and he's got knockout power. Really strong right hand. And George Hardwick, ran
Zapped
through
him.
him, ran through him. No problem. He doesn't get touched. And the thing is, George has phenomenal striking. He's got brilliant chopping low kicks. Got a great switch kick. Goes fakes low, goes high. Can hide his punches super well. Good body shots, and he snatches necks like no one else in Cage Warriors for sure.
Yeah, the guillotine last fight against the Hano was really impressive.
It's just
After beating him up,
it's instant. Yeah, he beats you up for a round and then strangles you. And I just can't say enough good things about the Hardwick brothers, and especially George.
George is the better brother of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
I think I got confused last time because did Harry have kind of a not impressive last fight, or maybe one of his last few fights? There was a fight with Harry Hardwick where I was watching him, and I think I was expecting George Hardwick, and I was like,
Oh, okay.
I was like a little confused there, so that was my own fault. Like, Cage Warriors, I've been watching for probably 4 or 5 years at this point, but really, really paying attention to them for probably the last 2 to 3. So. Still, my Cage Warriors.
His brother's more of a decision guy.
Yeah. It might have just been he went to a decision. I was like, I was expecting there was one of Harry's last few fights where he was a huge favorite and he kind of fought a closer decision. But George, his fight's really fun to watch. The Dean Truman fight with the body shot was really impressive. The Jacob Donald fight, last fight out, was really good. Would have loved to see him against Mendy Ben. Too bad. Mendy tested positive for COVID. That would have been a really entertaining fight. He was supposed to face Danilo Belluardo before this, another fight. That would have been really cool to see against a veteran. The late replacement here, I think it's just to keep it moving and have
just to keep him on the card.
Yeah, exactly. Have him ready for the next fight here. So right now, George Hardwick is a -400. I expect that to continue to move up, +300 on Lucas Copera. Again, I just think Hardwick is the move here. -400 is
I will sell my car if George Hardwick does not win.
Okay. So, might want to run that by the missus first, but, selling his car, that is his performance kind of showcase of the night. My showcase of the night is at 185 pounds. It's between Mr. Will Curry, who has been kind of promised to be a gift to Cage Warriors for a little bit, and then they put him against Duncan twice for some reason, for some god-known reason. They were like, that first doesn't count, so he had to go against Duncan twice. So now he's 6-2. So, I don't think there's a lot of shame in that 6-2 record, if I'm being honest. Patrick Valle, also known as Dexter, 12-12. That's not even salty. That's just... I don't know what that is. Vinegary, I guess. He's 41 years old, 6'1", 76-inch reach out of Paris, France. So he's not going to have the crowd on his side either. Coming off of a loss. Pretty much always he's coming off of a win or a loss with a 500 record. I guess every fighter is. But he's 12-12-1. Lost to a Czech Kone at 17-10 by decision with Mixed Martial Arts Grand Prix 4, that old chestnut. He was in the co-main event there. Before that, knocked out a 7-5 opponent, knocked out a 6-2 opponent 4 fights before that. It's been lately kind of rough though. 7 of his last 9 fights have been losses. Got flying kneed by Paul Daly back in 2013, and that's when things really seemed to fall off for Patrick, which is understandable. But honestly, he gets finished quite a bit, mostly on the feet, but also with grappling. Will Curry, absolute specimen. So far is he's definitely had moments he's looked really good. He had those 2 fights, as I said, against Christian Leroy Duncan, current middleweight champion. Got knocked out in the first one. They claimed it was a little bit early. I didn't think it was. No. Then they had to do it again for some reason. Did go to a decision, but it was a decision where, Curry was hesitant. He had gotten hurt by this guy before. Looked like he was more interested in surviving than winning, if I'm being honest. But we've seen how good Duncan is. Duncan is really, really good. Came back, got a triangle finish of a Nikolai Zolotov last December. He was looking pretty good in that fight, but it was a 3-2 opponent. I just think for Curry, when he knows he's physically dominant and better than his opponent, he looks really, really confident. And just, I think that this is definitely kind of his management. Not sure how confident he is still. I think that he probably gets this fight down and eventually gets a ground and pound or a submission finish of some kind. I think he'll use the wrestling, but the thing I'm just a little cautious about is why are you taking fights with 12-12 opponents? But after a 3-2 opponent, which he did what he was supposed to do against a 3-2 opponent, he's going to do what he's supposed to do against a 41-year-old 12-1 Patrick Valle here, who has several. He lost by scarf hold. Anytime I see a scarf hold finish that you've been defeated by, it means I'm not going to rate your grappling highly at all. So Curry just walks through him and better finish him in the first round for me to be impressed, to be honest with you. A decision I'm quite worried by. He needs to finish a guy like Patrick Valle here.
100% needs to finish him.
Especially if he's this high on the card.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know how George isn't ahead of him. But again, subject to change. They might change it on the day.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah, we've been told to get there an hour later now. Like everyone who's going got emails because of the
that's not good. You don't like that. That's never an email you like to see. That means that we're losing fighters and we might have some weight issues.
Yeah, exactly. So no, Will Curry. Anytime he faces adversity.
Adversity.
That's the word. He kind of just crumbles. So,
but it's all against Duncan. I mean, it's Duncan.
That's the only time. Look at the opponents he's faced.
Right. Well, Patrick Valle is not Leroy Duncan.
These guys are just there to get beaten up. They're just training dummies. I think he needs a test. This is not a test, but it's someone that has experience, which all his previous opponents have lacked, which is a good sign. He thrives off confidence. If he goes in this going, I'm going to smash this guy, he will smash this guy. And I think Will Curry has a lot of potential. I just do worry about his mental issues. But again, he's so young. And that was a big learning curve for him. I hate they paired him against Duncan twice because he's a specimen and he's legit. And it was not a bad stoppage the first fight either. So, yeah, I think
the decision was not competitive. So it's like, yes, he survived, but it was a blowout. So.
Survive is the perfect word to describe that. He just survived 3 rounds. Or 5 rounds, whatever it was. 3 rounds? Yeah.
It was 3 rounds.
Yeah, so, no, I think Curry takes this wherever he wants as well. But, yeah.
Is Patrick Valle... he's got to finish him because Curry is a minus 800 favorite. Which is just plus 500 on Patrick Valle.
That tells me more about how bad Patrick is than how good Will is.
I'm curious if Patrick Valle being nicknamed Dexter is because he looks like Dexter Morgan from the show. Because definitely in this Tapology picture, like he looks like Michael. I mean, it looks like Dexter, an MMA fighter almost.
He's going to bring a syringe.
Yeah, he's going to need that. That's what he'd need to win against Drago here. But I do agree that Will Curry's got some kind of mental issues. He almost reminds me of like Cage Warriors Edmund Shabazian. Like the skill, the hype early on and everything, yet not quite seeing the results. But we're to the main event. This will be the main event as long as these guys weigh in. Jordan Vucenic. I'm always adding like an extra C. Jordan
Think
Vucenic.
about it because he's the epidemic Vucenic.
The epidemic Vucenic, which is I always appreciate when fighters' nicknames help you say their name right. Jordan Vucenic. I'm adding like an extra C before the end, making him Russian. Vucenic. But taking on James Hendin. I like both these guys quite a bit. For a late notice, short notice, both these guys missing opponents. To get this as the main event, pretty good, honestly. Yeah. And I mean, it's my own theory, but I do believe James Hendon's been told for a few weeks to be ready as an alternate if either one of these guys were to pull out. So I'm going to say it's quasi short notice, but I also am going to say that I think Hendon was ready for an opportunity like this if it were to show up.
But he was originally paired against Tobias, wasn't he? Tobias Gorilla. Yeah. So I think that's why Tobias has this random, has got Decky now. So
yeah. So either way, both guys very good. The Honey Badger versus the Epidemic. I'll be breaking down Hendon first here, 6-1 out of Team Fish Tank, 5'8", 145. Does Team Fish Tank have to do with Fish Gold?
No.
Okay, I just figured I'd ask.
Not Chris.
You know.
No, Chris ain't involved.
But the Honey Badger here, 5'8", good pressure fighter. Mentioned the resemblance kind of in fighting to Steve or Liam Giddens. Puts a lot of pressure on with the grappling. Good boxing as well. The boxing that set up the takedowns. It's one loss coming to Paul Hughes. Paul Hughes looked really, really good in that spot and just, for lack of a better term, beat him to the punch, beat him to the pressure. Was a better version of James Hendin than James Hendin in a lot of ways. So we kind of talked about with the Ben Ellis fight earlier, how we kind of saw that going. That's how that fight went. Hendon just got a little bit outclassed there. Before, not a great level of competition. Kingsley Crawford early on, Jordan Barden, okay. Chris Edwards, not a great opponent. So guys you'd like to see him finish, but Paul McBain in his last fight, he did what he was supposed to do. He just outclassed him, took him down, out-grappled him, looked really good and confident in that fight. And that's, I think, the best performance we've seen out of Hendon. So definitely seems like the loss early in March of last year improved from that with the win in June of 2021 over Paul McBain, a bigger opponent. Hendon isn't the biggest of featherweights, and, I think that definitely is something that he's kind of used to, but I also think he's not kind of depleting his body like even Epidemic Vucenic is for this fight. Vucenic is going to be the bigger opponent, but he's going to be, I think, the one who's cutting a significant more weight. He also does have 5-round experience, though, and he does have experience making the championship weight. So these are just kind of aspects I'm looking into with this fight because I do believe that Hendon's a little bit behind it here. I think that Vucenic is very, very good. I don't judge these last 3 split decisions as bad. And then MMA Triple J real quick is saying he's got plays on Aiden James at -105. Lanier Kavanaugh at -245. Yeah, they're solid for sure. We're both on the Kingsley side with that fight with James, but it's one where I can understand making the bet on the underdog there. Either side I kind of agree with. But Jordan here, 8-1 now, had a very good fight with Paul Hughes. Ended up getting the split there to win the title. Defended the title against Morgan Charrier at 122. I thought he won that one pretty clearly. I didn't think it should have been a split myself, but it was a good fight.
That was for the belt, by the way, the Morgan one.
The Morgan one was for the belt, not the Paul Hughes one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my mistake. Yeah, Paul Hughes was a contender fight, and then the Steve Amiable fight before that, another split that I think they got the right side on. Overall, good experience within Cage Warriors for both guys. I think that this is going to be a very competitive fight. I do like Vucenic, though, in this spot. I think that, this is one where I think that size-wise he's going to be the bigger of the two. So I think in the grappling exchanges he's going to be able to either defend or be the one who ends up on top. And I think the leg kicks, I think the just overall stand-up skills of Jordan are much more advanced from James. I think James has got to be the one moving forward, pushing the pressure. Vucenic, really, whoever is the fighter with their back against the cage for the most part in this fight, I think has a big advantage. I think if Hendon's getting the one backing up Vucenic, I think that he could really, end up, taking this one. I do think that the pressure could be I rate Vucenic's pressure a little higher. With the original main event, I was edging towards Paul Hughes. I will say that. And I thought it was going to be a very good fight. I do think Hendon, was 1 or 2 fights away from being ready for this fight. I do think it's a little bit too much too soon. I give him credit for stepping up on short notice, and I think he's going to be ready. I just think Vucenic is going to be a little bit too much for him. But I think this is a really close competitive fight, and even on short notice, I still think it is. So I like both guys, Hendon is stepping up on short notice, and I kind of just said myself, I think that he was told ahead of time he was going to be the alternate for this fight. So I think he has been preparing for 5 rounds, but Hendon is preparing for 5 rounds while Vucenic has gone 5 rounds, and I think can go 5 rounds all day. I think that it's going to be competitive again. I think he finally gets a unanimous decision. I'll take Jordan Vucenic.
Yeah, I not only because I'm a Vucenic fan, but I have watched all of his career so many times on repeat and seen it all live. They ain't split decisions. He beat all 3 unanimously.
So you got to watch these fights.
The crowd was shocked. Yeah, if you just look at Tapology, you could be like, oh, he could have had 3 losses there. He whooped Morgan Charrier. The Paul Hughes fight was very competitive, but the takedowns were just, and the ground control from Vucenic, Paul Hughes did not expect that for a second, and that changed the whole fight. Steve Aimable was actually...
And look at what Paul Hughes did to Hendin.
Exactly. Paul Hughes is a better version of James Hendin. James Hendin, what isn't quite there for me. He's very good. He has an absolute... He's got very high volume. He's normally the guy that presses, but when Paul Hughes backed him up against the fence, Paul Hughes teed off.
Right.
And that's Jordan's game. Jordan's game is a stalk you down, plodding mentality. He's really good at darting in and out. He doesn't laterally move that crazy, but he's almost like an English Jose Aldo. If that makes sense. He chops your lead leg. He stuffs you. Yeah, he just absolutely shoves his jab in your face and makes you panic to the point where he can clip you. Now, not to brag on my own channel. When I've got the interview I did with Jordan on the channel, and when I was speaking to him, he's absolutely jacked right now. He's in better shape than he's ever been. He's got the best coaches around him. And he said in training for the first time ever he's taken a year off, remember, since that Morgan Charrier fight. He was sitting ringside at York Hall watching the Paul Hughes Morgan Charrier fight, which was very close. But he's starting to knock everyone out in training now. He's knocking sparring partners out daily. And he's believing in his own power now.
Did you ask him if it bothers him these last 3 splits being the results on his record? If that,
I did, okay. Yeah, because I said I don't believe they were splits, and he says the only one he was actually like, oh, okay, was he knows he beat Paul Hughes and Charrier, but the Steve Aimable fight was close. Steve put him in a few trouble. You know, Steve's got 20 odd fights to his record when
he's
at
a
the
good
time
fighter.
Jordan had 5. Steve is Diddy Kong is good, man. But Jordan just sits on his punches better. He's going to... I just don't think James Hendin's ready for the power of Vucenic. How he makes the weight, I don't know. He is massive. And he's been sparring with Daniel Wood.
Vucenic, you're saying, yeah. I mean, you can even look at the Tapology pictures here. Look at how narrow Hendin is to Vucenic. Vucenic's shoulders don't fit in the frame. Hendin is like...
weight class, in my opinion.
I mean, Hendin kind of reminds me of when, Frankie was at 155, 145 forever, and people were just like, bantamweight. And then by the time he got down there, it was too late. But yeah, so you got Vucenic. Sorry, go ahead.
I think, I do think I can see what you're saying with Hendin going 5 rounds. I can see it being an absolute clinic for Vucenic, but from what I've been hearing and from what I know he wants to do, he was looking to shut the lights off Paul Hughes. Yeah. And if I ask you the question, if he could knock out Paul Hughes, would he be able to knock out James Hendin? MMA maths lacking, but yes, is the I think Jordan Vucenic again same as George Hardwick causes a lot of problems for guys in the UFC right now, let alone contenders. I think he's going to turn the lights off Hendin in this one. I can see it going 2 or 3 rounds, but then I can see him clipping him.
Yeah, it'd be a huge statement. Odds are relatively close. Minus 185 on Jordan Vucenic. Plus 155 on the short notice replacement, James Hendin. I love that price there. Absolutely. I also
got his brown belt recently as well in jiu-jitsu. So if you think Hendin can take him down and hold him down,
I think that you can close out with the Vucenic Hardwick type of setup. I think Vucenic with Bagley is a good setup as well. Those would be 2 of the double ups I would do. And MMA Triple J, it's sad the card got gutted, but I mean, it's part of MMA 2022. The fact that the 7 fights that we have, I think, are all actually pretty high quality. 6 out of 7. I'm not going to give Patrick Valee that kind of credit. Maybe I'm eating crow next week on this channel when Valee knocks him out. So, go bet him at plus 500 if you want.
I'm upset the opponents got changed, but I'm more upset we lost fights. That's
Yeah.
because I'm there. I'm there for this one. So
Yeah. I mean, it does suck to see a 7-fight card at any point, but at least for the most part, they're 7 good fights. So
just going to be a long interval in between them.
yeah, you're gonna have plenty of time to get
around.
your beverages. Go talk to Dan Hardy about the breakdown and everything. But that's gonna do it for the Cage Warriors 134 breakdown. It is going to be on UFC Fight Pass, both the prelims, if there are prelims, and the main card. Might just be a full main card. But what time do the fights start for you over there?
I think 6 o'clock is when you get into probably about 6:30, probably the first one, 7 p.m.
So like 2:30, 3 p.m. Eastern time here over in the States. So it's a nice afternoon card before you get to the evening with the PFL Challenger Series over here. And then UFC London, we'll be back with our breakdown tomorrow, right around this time. Lewis, obviously very excited this whole week for London. So ton of breakdowns over on Norton MMA if you want to check out some of his already. Paddy Pimblett, the Paddy Pimblett-Kazula Vargas fight already up. Tom Aspinall-Volkov fight. Did you do the Gunner fight?
Gunner Sato's on there, yeah.
Okay, Gunner Sato.
I mean, just go McCann right now. So
yeah, and just go over to Norton MMA. There's tons of great matchups, fantasy and reality, the recap shows. And then, again, we'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. GMT time, or around that time. We'll figure it out for UFC in London with myself, Lewis, and Josh. But that's going to do it for the 134 breakdown show. Timestamps will be up in the description after the broadcast. But for Aaron and Lewis, have a great day, everybody, and keep taking care of each other out there.